Admiral Kim Tai-ho stood in the center of Earth's most secure command room, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The holographic display before him cast an eerie blue light across his weathered face as he read the message that had traveled across countless light-years to reach them. Around him, 50 of humanity's brightest minds sat in complete silence, their faces reflecting the same mixture of anger and disbelief that Kim felt churning in his stomach. The transmission had arrived without warning, cutting through every defense Earth possessed as if they were made of paper. It was a demonstration of power, a casual flexing of technological muscle that made humanity's greatest achievements look like children's toys. Dr. Park Mi-young, Earth's foremost expert on alien civilizations, stepped closer to the display. Her usually calm demeanor showed cracks of tension as she translated the formal diplomatic language into terms everyone could understand. "They're calling them the Trials of Worth," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's essentially a series of public challenges designed to test our species." The hologram shifted, showing the faces of the beings who had sent this ultimatum. The Zephyrian Empire dominated the council with their crystalline features and eyes that seemed to hold the light of dying stars. Beside them sat representatives from the Altarian Collective, their insectoid forms clicking with what could only be described as amusement. The Rigelian Union's ambassador floated in a containment field, its gaseous body swirling with colors that hurt to look at directly. Commander Lee Junho, despite being the youngest person in the room at 32, commanded Earth's most advanced fleet. His hands trembled slightly as he processed what he was seeing. "This isn't a test," he said through gritted teeth. "It's entertainment for them. They want to broadcast our humiliation across their entire network of worlds, show everyone what happens to species that dare to reach for the stars without permission." The message was clear in its arrogant simplicity. Humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, making first contact with galactic civilization only 2 decades later. In cosmic terms, they were infants, barely worth acknowledging. Yet somehow, their rapid technological advancement had caught the attention of powers that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. The Zephyrian ambassador's words echoed through the chamber with mechanical precision. The trials would test humanity's technology, their military capabilities, their cultural achievements, and their scientific understanding. Each challenge would be broadcast live to over 300 civilizations, turning Earth's potential downfall into the galaxy's most popular entertainment program. Dr. Choi Soo-jin, who had spent her entire career trying to build diplomatic bridges with alien species, looked as if someone had struck her. "The consequences are absolute," she said, her voice hollow. "Success means we earn the right to exist as an independent species. Failure means immediate reclassification as a servant race, with Earth becoming a resource world for whoever claims us. Refusal to participate." She didn't need to finish. The hologram showed clear images of the Zephyrian battle fleet positioned just outside Earth's solar system. Ships the size of mountains, each one carrying enough firepower to crack continents. The message was unmistakable: comply or be destroyed. "How many ships?" asked General Nam Ki-young, head of Earth's combined military forces. Commander Lee consulted his tablet, his face growing paler with each number. "Our best estimates put their force at over 200 capital ships, with support vessels numbering in the thousands. Each of their main battle cruisers outguns our entire fleet by a factor of 10. The room fell silent again. Humanity's greatest achievement, their faster-than-light capable fleet, consisted of 63 ships. They were proud of those vessels, the culmination of decades of innovation and engineering brilliance. Compared to what waited beyond their solar system, they might as well have been throwing rocks. Admiral Kim walked slowly around the holographic display, studying every detail of the alien faces staring back at him. These beings had ruled the galaxy since before Earth's sun had finished forming. They had seen countless species rise and fall, had witnessed the birth and death of entire civilizations. To them, humanity was just another upstart race that needed to be reminded of its place in the cosmic order. "What choice do we have?" Dr. Choi asked, her diplomatic training warring with her human instincts. "Even if we somehow manage to destroy their fleet here, they represent just a tiny fraction of galactic civilization. We'd be fighting the entire known universe." Engineer Beck Dornwook, who had designed many of Earth's most advanced systems, spoke up from the back of the room. "The technology gap is enormous. Their sensors can apparently penetrate every defense we have. Their weapons can destroy worlds. Their ships can cross the galaxy in days while ours take months. We're not just outmatched, we're completely obsolete." Admiral Kim stopped walking and turned to face the assembled group. His expression had changed, the initial shock and anger replaced by something harder to read. "We accept their challenge," he said simply. The room erupted in confused voices. Several people spoke at once, questioning the decision, pointing out the obvious impossibility of success. But Kim raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Park, I want you to begin immediate preparations. Assemble our best people for each category of trial. Commander Lee, ready our observers." He paused, and for just a moment, the corner of his mouth twitched upward in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "The galaxy expects a show. We're going to give them exactly what they want." As the message accepting the challenge was transmitted back to the Galactic Council, none of the alien dignitaries monitoring Earth's communications noticed that slight smile. They were too busy celebrating their victory, too confident in their superiority to pay attention to the subtle details of human expression. They had no idea that Admiral Kim's smile meant something very different from surrender. The massive space station hung in the darkness like a jeweled crown, its gleaming surfaces reflecting the light of Kepler 442b's twin suns. The arena was larger than anything humanity had ever built, stretching for kilometers in every direction. Viewing platforms jutted out from the central hub like the spokes of a wheel, each one filled with representatives from civilizations that had ruled the stars since before Earth's first cities were built. The opening ceremonies had lasted for 3 full days. Each established species took their turn to demonstrate why they deserved their place in the galactic hierarchy. The displays were beyond anything human imagination had ever conceived. The Zephyrians went first, as befitted the galaxy's oldest empire. Their demonstration weapons materialized in the center of the arena, sleek constructions of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. When activated, the energy beams they produced could slice through asteroids like butter. Their defensive shields created barriers of pure force that sparkled like captured pieces of nebulae, beautiful and utterly impenetrable. "Witness the power that has maintained galactic peace for 10 million years, announced their representative, his voice carrying the weight of eons. The assembled crowds from 300 worlds responded with respectful silence, understanding that they were seeing forces that could reshape solar systems. The Altarian collective followed with a military demonstration that was poetry in motion. Thousands of their warriors moved across the arena floor in perfect synchronization, their formations shifting and flowing like living geometry. Every step had been calculated, every movement refined through 10,000 years of constant warfare. They advanced, retreated, flanked, and surrounded imaginary enemies with a precision that made clockwork look clumsy. Their commander spoke through rapid clicks and chirps that the universal translators rendered as tactical doctrine. "These formations have conquered 17 galaxies. No enemy has ever broken our battle lines. No force has ever withstood our advance." The Rigelian Union's cultural presentation defied human comprehension entirely. They created art by manipulating space-time itself, bending reality into shapes that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Their music was composed of quantum frequencies that could only be heard by minds capable of processing mathematical equations as pure sensation. The performance required 3 quantum computers just to translate it into forms that lesser species could barely appreciate. As each civilization displayed their achievements, the pattern became clear. These were not just advanced species, they were forces of nature that had transcended the normal limitations of existence. They had achieved perfection in their chosen fields through millions of years of continuous development. Then came Earth's turn. Captain Song Minute-ho walked to the center of the arena carrying what looked like a weapon assembled in someone's garage. The rifle was obviously handmade, its metal components welded together with visible seams. Wires and circuits were exposed along its barrel, and the whole thing looked like it might fall apart if handled too roughly. Compared to the crystalline perfection of Zephyrian weapons, it looked like a child's toy made from scrap metal. "This is our standard infantry weapon," Song announced, his voice calm and matter-of-fact. He held the rifle up for the cameras to capture every crude detail. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Laughter echoed through the viewing platforms as representatives from hundreds of worlds pointed at the primitive human weapon. The sound grew louder and more mocking as alien civilizations shared their amusement at humanity's pathetic offering. "Look how they cobble together pieces of metal," wheezed one observer through the translation system. "Do they not understand the basic principles of energy manipulation?" Councillor Vextari of the Zephyrian Empire leaned forward in his observation box, his crystalline features reflecting his satisfaction. This was proceeding exactly as planned. "Notice how they still rely on projectile weapons," he commented to his advisors. "They have not even mastered directed energy systems." The cultural demonstration was equally amusing to the galactic audience. Dr. Yang Haijin took the stage with a simple wooden guitar, an instrument so primitive it seemed to belong in a museum. She began to play a melody that was hauntingly beautiful in its simplicity, her voice joining with a small chorus of human singers in perfect harmony. After witnessing the Rigelian Union's reality-bending artistic displays, humanity's offering seemed almost embarrassingly basic. The melody was pleasant enough, but it existed in only 3 dimensions and could be understood without quantum processing. It was the kind of music that civilizations typically abandoned once they developed faster-than-light communication. Observe how they cling to acoustic vibrations, Vexthari sneered to his companions. They produce sound by physically striking materials. They cannot even manipulate energy at the quantum level to create proper art. The tactical demonstration completed humanity's apparent humiliation. Lieutenant Colonel Nam Ki-young led a squad of human soldiers across the arena in what could only be described as organized chaos. Instead of the perfect geometric formations displayed by the Altarians, the humans moved in seemingly random patterns. They scattered, regrouped, adapted their positions based on changing conditions, and generally looked like they were making up their strategy as they went along. "Are they even following a doctrine?" asked one military observer. "Their movements appear completely improvised." "Primitive minds cannot appreciate the elegance of proper formation fighting," explained another expert. "They lack the discipline for true military science." The Galactic Council members exchanged satisfied glances from their elevated platform. Everything was proceeding exactly according to their plan. Humanity was providing the perfect example of why younger species needed guidance from their betters. The broadcasts were being transmitted to every corner of known space, ensuring that the lesson would not be forgotten. But in the statistical readouts that scrolled past unnoticed on monitoring screens, a different story was being written. Sung Minute-Ho's primitive rifle had achieved the highest accuracy scores in the arena's history. Yang Haijin's simple melody had triggered unprecedented emotional responses in the younger members of multiple species. Nam Ki-young's chaotic troops had completed their objectives in record time while suffering 0 casualties. The show was just beginning, and the galaxy had no idea what they were really watching. The third day dawned with an uncomfortable silence hanging over the massive arena. Where once the viewing platforms had buzzed with confident chatter and amused commentary, now there were only whispered conversations and nervous glances. Something was happening that no one had expected, and the galaxy's most powerful civilizations were beginning to realize they might have underestimated their newest members. Engineer Beck Dornwook stood before a twisted mass of metal and crystal that had once been the heart of a starship. The engine belonged to a civilization that had vanished from the galaxy over 1,000,000 years ago, its technology so alien that even the Zephyrians had never fully understood how it worked. The challenge was simple in concept but impossible in practice: repair the engine well enough to achieve basic function. For 3 days, representatives from the galaxy's most advanced species had attempted this same task. The Altarian Collective's master engineers had run detailed scans for 72 hours before declaring the engine beyond repair. The Rigelian Union's quantum mechanics team had built elaborate mathematical models that proved reconstruction was theoretically impossible. Even the Zephyrian Empire's crystal tech specialists, who had studied similar engines for centuries, had managed only to identify why the system had failed in the first place. Beck approached the broken engine with nothing more than a basic toolkit and what he cheerfully called human stubbornness. He spent the first hour simply walking around the engine, looking at it from different angles, occasionally reaching out to touch components that other engineers had declared too dangerous to handle directly. "What is he doing?" whispered one of the Altarian observers. "He has not even activated his scanning equipment." "Primitive species often rely on direct sensory input," explained a Rigelian expert. "They lack sophisticated analytical tools, so they must use touch and sight." But as Beck began to work, something extraordinary happened. Instead of following the complex repair protocols that other species had attempted, he started connecting components in ways that seemed to violate basic engineering principles. He took spare parts that other teams had rejected as incompatible and somehow made them fit. He rerouted power flows through pathways that the engine's original designers had never intended. "Stop," called the Altarian judge, its crystalline form flickering with alarm. "You are creating dangerous instabilities in the quantum matrix." Beck paused in his work and looked up with a smile. "Are you sure about that? Because the readings I'm getting suggest the opposite." The monitoring systems confirmed what seemed impossible. Not only was the engine becoming functional, but its efficiency ratings were climbing far beyond what the original specifications had indicated. Somehow, Beck's apparently random modifications were creating improvements that advanced civilizations had never achieved. "How did you know to reverse the polarity matrix?" demanded the judge, its voice carrying a note of desperation. That modification is not mentioned in any technical database. Beck simply shrugged and wiped his hands on his coveralls. It felt right. Sometimes the best solutions aren't in the technical manuals. Sometimes you just have to listen to what the machine is trying to tell you. The arena fell silent as the ancient engine hummed to life for the first time in over 1,000,000 years, running at 130% of its original efficiency. In the combat simulation chambers, something equally impossible was happening. Sergeant Oyojin faced opponents who had trained for warfare longer than human civilization had existed. The Zephyrian battlemaster she fought had led campaigns across 17 galaxies. The Altarian warrior form had participated in conflicts that spanned entire millennia. Yet somehow, O was winning every engagement. Her tactics made no sense to the advanced AI systems that analyzed galactic warfare. She moved in patterns that violated established principles of combat strategy. She took risks that should have resulted in immediate defeat. She made decisions that seemed random and chaotic. But chaos, it turned out, was exactly what her opponents could not handle. Your approach to battlefield dynamics is completely irrational, observed General Kethmore of the Rigelian Union, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly in confusion. You violate 17 fundamental principles of warfare theory. O dodged another attack and delivered a counterstrike that should have been impossible to execute. That's probably why they work, she replied with a slight smile. You're all so focused on perfect tactics that you can't adapt when someone does something unexpected. The general's 6 eyes blinked even faster. In Rigelian culture, this was equivalent to a human having a complete mental breakdown. But warfare is a science. There are optimal solutions to every tactical situation. Maybe, O said as she secured victory in yet another impossible scenario. But I'm not fighting your science. I'm fighting you. And you're not a mathematical equation, you're a living being who makes assumptions. The scientific challenges produced the most shocking upset of all. Dr. Kang Suho was presented with a theoretical physics problem that had puzzled the galaxy's greatest minds for thousands of years. The mathematics involved required quantum computers just to display properly. The concepts touched on areas of reality that most species could barely perceive. Kang looked at the problem for exactly 17 minutes. Then he picked up a piece of paper and began writing equations by hand. What is he doing? Asked one observer. The computational requirements alone should take months to process. He appears to be using analog calculation methods, replied a Zephyrian scientist, its voice filled with disbelief. No organic mind can process mathematics at that complexity level without artificial enhancement. But 6 hours later, Kang set down his pen and announced that he had solved the problem. The solution he presented was elegant, simple, and completely correct. More importantly, his approach opened up entirely new fields of theoretical research that no one had previously considered. How? Whispered the chief Zephyrian scientist. How did you see what we missed? Kang smiled and gestured to his handwritten notes. I stopped trying to think like a quantum computer and started thinking like a human. Sometimes the best way to understand something complex is to approach it simply. In the observation decks, representatives from hundreds of worlds leaned forward in their seats. The entertainment they had expected was transforming into something far more significant. They were not watching a primitive species fail, they were watching the impossible happen over and over again. Admiral Kim, watching from Earth's diplomatic box, allowed himself another small smile. The galaxy was finally starting to pay attention. They would need to be watching very carefully for what came next. The arena's massive central platform had never held such perfect silence. 300 civilizations, representatives of species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, sat in absolute stillness as Admiral Kim Taiho walked slowly to the center of the stage. His footsteps echoed through the vast space like drumbeats, each one seeming to mark the end of an era. For 3 days, the galaxy had watched what they believed was humanity's inevitable failure. They had laughed at primitive weapons, mocked simple tactics, and dismissed basic technology. But now, as Kim stood before them with quiet confidence, something had fundamentally changed in the atmosphere of the arena. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Kim began, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the station without any electronic amplification. For 3 days, you have observed humanity's performance in your trials. You have seen our technology, our tactics, our culture, and our science. You have judged us primitive, chaotic, and inefficient. Councillor Vexthari rose from the elevated council platform, his crystalline features reflecting the arena's lights in sharp, nervous patterns. The confidence that had marked his every word for 3 days was gone, replaced by something that looked suspiciously like fear. Your species has shown unexpected adaptability, he admitted, his ancient voice carrying a tremor that had not been there before. However, the final trials will truly test your worthiness too. The trials are over, Kim interrupted, his calm tone cutting through the alien's proclamation like a blade through silk. The words hit the arena like a physical blow. A ripple of confusion and alarm swept through the viewing platforms as representatives from hundreds of worlds tried to process what they had just heard. The trials could not be over. There were still challenges to complete, still humiliations to witness, still lessons to teach about the proper order of galactic civilization. Dr. Park M.I. Young stepped forward, and everything about her demeanor had changed. Gone was the nervous scientist who had stammered through diplomatic protocols 3 days earlier. In her place stood a woman who carried herself with the confidence of someone who had been holding back her true capabilities. What you have witnessed was not our failure to meet your standards, she announced, her voice clear and strong. It was our success at exceeding them while appearing to fail. The implications of her words began to sink in across the arena, and the silence grew even deeper as alien minds struggled to understand what she meant. Captain Song Minute-ho walked to the center of the platform, still carrying the crude-looking rifle that had caused so much laughter on the first day. But now, instead of simply displaying it as a primitive weapon, he began touching hidden interfaces along its frame. Panels slid open to reveal sophisticated electronics. Components reconfigured themselves with mechanical precision. The weapon's true nature became clear as it transformed before their eyes. This is not a simple projectile weapon, Song explained as the rifle continued its transformation. It is a modular platform that can be reconfigured for dozens of different combat scenarios within seconds. Its apparent simplicity masks adaptive technology that your energy weapons cannot match. The arena erupted in shocked voices as alien engineers recognized what they were seeing. The weapon could function as a sniper rifle, an assault weapon, an energy projector, or even a defensive shield generator depending on its configuration. It was not primitive at all, it was elegantly advanced in ways that their specialized weapons could never achieve. Engineer Baek Dong-wook stepped forward with a smile that was no longer humble or apologetic. We call it deliberate understatement, he explained as holographic displays began showing the true specifications of the engine modifications he had made. While your species spent millions of years perfecting single-purpose tools, we perfected tools that could serve any purpose. Your weapons are more powerful than ours, but they can only do one thing. Our weapons are weaker individually, but they can adapt to any situation. The mathematical projections floating above his head showed efficiency ratings that should have been impossible. The ancient engine was not just running better than its original specifications, it was running better than anything the galaxy had ever produced. Dr. Yang Haijin walked forward carrying her simple wooden guitar, but now she activated systems that none of them had known existed. The instrument projected a holographic display showing neurological scans from every species in the audience. The data revealed something that stunned the galactic community into silence. Your quantum symphonies are mathematically perfect, she said, her voice carrying across the arena without amplification. They can be appreciated by minds capable of processing 11-dimensional mathematics. But they only work for species with those specific capabilities. My simple melody achieved something your advanced art cannot do. It created emotional resonance across completely different forms of consciousness. The neurological data proved her point. Every species in the audience, regardless of their evolutionary background or mental structure, had responded to her music in similar ways. The simple human song had achieved universal communication where advanced galactic art had failed. Admiral Kim stepped back to the center of the platform, and now his small, hidden smile was gone, replaced by something much more significant. You sought to humiliate us by proving our inferiority, he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Instead, you provided us with the perfect stage to demonstrate why humanity deserves not servitude, but partnership. The silence that followed was complete and devastating. 3 days of assumed superiority crumbled as the galaxy's greatest powers realized they had been outplayed by what they had considered a primitive species. Every laugh, every sneer, every casual dismissal had been based on fundamental misunderstanding of what they were actually witnessing. Counselor Vextari's voice, when it finally came, was barely a whisper. What are you? Kim's smile was no longer small or hidden. It was the smile of someone who had just revealed their hand in the greatest game ever played. We are humanity. We are adaptation. We are the species that turns every disadvantage into a weapon, every limitation into a strength, and every attempt at humiliation into a demonstration of power. The show was about to reach its finale, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As Admiral Kim's final words echoed through the massive arena, something extraordinary began to happen in the space surrounding the station. The darkness that had seemed empty and peaceful started to ripple and shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot pavement on a summer day. The alien representatives in their viewing platforms noticed the disturbance and leaned forward, trying to understand what they were seeing. "Computer, decloak the fleet," Admiral Kim commanded, his voice carrying clearly through the arena's perfect acoustics. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history for millions of years to come. The stars themselves seemed to shift and dance as hundreds of human vessels materialized out of nothingness. They appeared one by one at first, then in groups, then in massive formations that stretched as far as the eye could see. Ships of every size and configuration surrounded the arena station, their hulls reflecting the light of distant suns. The alien observers sat in stunned silence as they realized the truth. The human fleet had been there all along, hidden by technology that the Galactic Council had declared impossible. For 3 days, while they had been watching humanity's supposed humiliation, they had been completely surrounded by forces they never knew existed. Commander Lee Junho's voice came through the communication systems, but it was no longer the respectful, careful tone he had used during the diplomatic meetings. Now his words carried the authority of someone who commanded overwhelming force. "Admiral, the Terran Defense Fleet stands ready. All vessels report full operational status and await your orders." But these were not the primitive ships that Galactic Intelligence had reported. Each vessel bore the same characteristics that had marked every human demonstration during the trials. They appeared simple and straightforward from the outside, but even a casual observer could tell that their true capabilities were hidden beneath that deceptive exterior. Councillor Vexthari rose from his seat in the council chambers, his crystalline form flickering with what could only be described as panic. "This is impossible," he breathed, his ancient voice cracking with disbelief. "Our sensor networks show nothing. Our intelligence reports indicated that humanity possessed fewer than 50 interstellar vessels total." Dr. Kang Suho stepped forward, and everything about his appearance had changed. Gone was the humble scientist who had struggled with complex problems. In his place stood a man whose confidence suggested he had been holding back his true abilities for a very long time. "Counselor," he said with a smile that was both friendly and terrifying, "you have been observing our decoy fleet for the past 2 years. Those 63 ships you detected were specifically designed to be seen by your sensors. Our actual vessels have been using stealth technology that your people declared theoretically impossible to develop." The implications of his words hit the galactic representatives like a physical blow. If humanity could hide an entire fleet of this magnitude, what else had they concealed? How many worlds did they actually control? What was their real population? How advanced was their true technology? The questions multiplied in alien minds as the scope of human deception became clear. Every assumption about Earth's capabilities, every casual dismissal of human potential, every confident prediction about their limitations had been based on carefully constructed lies. "This was never about proving our worth to you," Admiral Kim explained, his voice now carrying the unmistakable authority of someone who held complete control over the situation. "This was about proving to the galaxy that humanity cannot be dismissed, cannot be enslaved, and will not be underestimated again." On the viewing platforms, representatives from hundreds of civilizations watched in silence as the balance of galactic power shifted before their eyes. Species that had ruled the stars for millions of years suddenly found themselves staring at a force they had never seen coming. The human fleet was massive, but it was not arranged in threatening formations. The ships maintained respectful distances from the arena station, their weapons powered down but clearly visible. It was a demonstration of strength, not an act of aggression. The message was clear: humanity was powerful enough to be dangerous, but civilized enough to choose peace. "We could have revealed ourselves as conquerors," Admiral Kim continued, his words carrying to every corner of the arena. "We could have demanded tribute, claimed territory, or imposed our will through force. Instead, we chose to earn respect through demonstration rather than take it through violence. The question now, honored council, is what kind of relationship you wish to have with humanity going forward." The arena's communication systems suddenly activated, and voices from across the human fleet joined together in perfect coordination. Thousands of human crew members spoke as one, their words reaching every alien in the station. "Welcome to the new galaxy." Councillor Vexthari found himself in a position that no Zephyrian leader had experienced in over 10 million years. The species they had intended to humiliate was now offering them partnership as equals rather than demanding revenge for the insult. His ancient pride, built on eons of unquestioned superiority, crumbled as he faced a choice he had never imagined possible. "What are your terms?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Kim's smile became genuinely warm for the first time in 3 days. Simple terms, Counselor. Treat us as equals in all galactic affairs. Respect our sovereignty over human space and human worlds. And remember that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our weapons. It was our refusal to accept that anything is impossible. As the human fleet held their positions around the station, maintaining perfect discipline while demonstrating overwhelming force, the galaxy began to understand that the trials had ended exactly as they were meant to. Humanity had indeed proven their worth, but they had proven it to be far greater than anyone had imagined. The show was finally over. The partnership was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same again.